Can you imagine if the sky was actually falling for the St. Louis Cardinals? I mean, not like literally, but actually proverbially fall. Twitter's bad enough. I can't imagine it getting a whole lot worse. What's up, everybody? I'm Tara Wellman, and this is Birdseeds. Thanks for checking it out. Now, the Cardinals, despite not being able to sweep a series and a really ugly inning or two here and there, they are still, in fact, 77-44, best record in baseball, 5 games up on the division. So while it seems like some bad things have happened, the sky isn't falling quite yet. However, if you believe in the Sports Illustrated cover curse, you were probably pretty frightened when their new issue came out with Jason Heyward on the cover. And if you don't believe in the Sports Illustrated cover curse, you might have had second thoughts when just after that came out, Jason Heyward also came out of a game injured. The good news is, curse or no curse, Jason Heyward's hamstring issue seems to have been resolved with a couple of days off. However, it's about time to revisit some of the injuries and some of the new ones that have crept up this season, because as much as we want to make pitching the story for the Cardinals this year, it's kind of the year of the injury. So let's revisit some of those in this week's Injury Report. I'd like to say the latest Cardinals injury couldn't have come at a worse time, but is there really a good time to lose your potential Rookie of the Year candidate? Anytime you hear elbow injuries in baseball, I get a little squeamish because they tend to mean some things that could be pretty serious. However, Grichuk's not a pitcher. They're thinking 15 to 20 days might do the job, and that would put him returning at the beginning of September. There was a good report this week on the Matt Adams front. He is headed to Florida to begin all those baseball activities, see exactly where he is, and hopefully get him to a rehab start before the minor league season's end. It could be a very important week for Matt Holliday as well in his recovery process. He's set to begin running again this week. Again. And, you know, we've played this game with him before, so I'm a little bit hesitant to be too optimistic about his return, but this week will be important to see where he is, how the healing process is going, and what kind of timeline you might be able to put together for him. John Mozeliak thinks mid-September is a good range for him too, and certainly no denying that his bat back in the lineup would be a big boost to an offense that's had a pretty hard time getting anything going. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about John Jay for a couple of reasons. One, Randall Grichuk. Two, there just hasn't been that much information out there. This wrist injury seems to be something that's just nagging. It's not letting him really resume those baseball activities, maybe hitting off a tee here and there, but this week he seems to be closer to that road. He's back traveling with the team this week, and there are reports that he's been cleared to resume some of those baseball activities. So still no timeline for any kind of return, although, again, John Mozeliak has alluded to the fact that September's not out of the equation. Got a question for you. Do you believe in miracles? Because Adam Wainwright sure does. Right now, he's throwing on flat ground 90 feet away. If everything goes according to schedule, he could be throwing off a mound in September, but throwing off a mound and being game ready are two completely different things. I love you, Waino. I do, and I really believe that this team could benefit from anything he could provide, but I'm not sure how. So that's a puzzle piece that really only makes sense if he's vintage Adam Wainwright, even out of the bullpen. Although he does have a history of doing well out of the bullpen in the postseason, so. Quickly becoming my favorite part of this show is a chance to answer your Twitter questions. This week, I'm starting with a question from my good friend Michael, and he says, how do we get Mike to give Kolten a day off? He's been more molting and less molten as of late. If you don't get the whole molten thing, quickly I'll explain. My iPhone autocorrect changes Kolten to molten. So early in the season when he was so on fire, I just went with it and made it molten Kolten. He's kind of lost some of that luster, so I haven't used it much lately, but you're right. He's looked pretty awful. In fact, I think he looks as bad right now as Matt Carpenter did at his lowest point, and that's pretty bad. I think Kolten's in his own head right now. He has no confidence at the plate, he has no confidence in the field, and when he's right, his confidence soars, and that's what allows him to make highlight reel defensive plays and hit walk-off grand slams. He has no confidence right now, and I know people said, well, he had a day off this week, what's his problem? I don't think this is a one day off on an off day anyway kind of problem. I think Kolten needs a complete reset. How do you do that? The struggle is there's not a lot of depth in the infield positions right now. Your backup at second base is basically Pete Kozma, who's also your backup at shortstop and your backup catcher. So you know how Mike is with those backups. Now, you could move Matt Carpenter to second, Reynolds could play third, Moss could play at first. Everybody plays musical positions and gets Kolten a day off. I think at this point, whether it's Pete Kozma playing or moving everybody around, you almost have to just bite the bullet and do it, because getting Kolten right is very key in maintaining that gap in the NL Central, much less the postseason, where you're going to need everybody performing at their best. How do you get Mike to understand that? Maybe lock Kolten in a closet somewhere and don't tell him where the key is? Next question from another good friend. Can a regulation MLB game be played inside a hospital? Asking for a friend. That's a fantastic question. I think the Cardinals would probably have a lot of success with this because they would just naturally have the most players accustomed to the hospital at this point. So yes, I think it could be done. I think you could almost use hallways as the base paths, maybe like the nurses' stations as the bases. You'd have a little bit of trouble trying to track down fly balls in the lack of space. But the real question is, could Yadier Molina still throw out a runner from his knees if said runner wasn't running, but rolling on an Adam Wainwright-esque scooter? Many thanks to Brad for asking a question that will not likely result in me just making a joke about the original question. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, if everyone is healthy, what is St. Louis's best postseason bench? Does it change with a series involving a DH? This bench has been pretty dreadful as of late because of all of those injuries. So it could be a huge difference in the postseasons. If guys are healthy, though, it's a little bit debatable for me because healthy, like I'm healthy, but you don't want me patrolling left field in the postseason. So healthy and ready for a Major League Baseball postseason are kind of two different things, but we'll go with it and assume that if we decide these guys are healthy, it also means that they're ready for big league action. So your starters, the outfield is Holliday, Grichuk in center as the starter, and Hayward. Infielders, Carpenter, Peralta, Wong, and I'm going with Adams, though I went back and forth on this one quite a bit, but assuming he is in fact healthy and ready for Major League Baseball activity, I'm going with Adams in the starting lineup, not off the bench. And of course, Yadier Molina is the starting catcher. Now, for the bench, I've got Stephen Piscotty as a given. He can play the outfield, he could play the infield at first base, but I've got him as an outfielder. I'm going with John Jay. I know I'm going to take some heat for that, but I'm doing it anyway, because if John Jay is healthy, a 300 hitter off the bench is a big deal. Reynolds is the backup at first and potentially third. Pete Kozma, I mean, who else is your backup at second base or short, unless you bring Greg Garcia up and then suddenly say goodbye to Pete Kozma. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I think it's going to be Pete. And Tony Cruz is obviously the backup catcher, because that's the way it goes. Now, I know I'm going to take some heat for not including Peter Borges and maybe Brandon Moss, although I think at this point, no one's really going to be too disappointed if he's not on the postseason roster. If it changes for a DH, what I would do is start Stephen Piscotty in left and DH Matt Holliday, especially with the quad situation and his less than spectacular defense anyway. If Holliday can just hit the ball and Piscotty can do the rest, that'd be great. I can already imagine some of the comments I'm going to get. for some of those choices that I made. But whatever, you guys. Brad asked me to answer this question, and I answered it. It's my opinion. And if you have a different one, feel free to leave it in the comments below, and we can discuss like grown-ups, okay? Seriously though, guys, thanks for watching. Thank you so much for your questions. Feel free to send them to me all week as things come up, and I will talk about some of them on next week's show. If you follow me on Periscope, sometimes I'll do like a little pre-show live Periscope, and we can kind of have conversations there too about what you're thinking, what you want to hear about, and what you think about, right now, the best team in baseball, the St. Louis Cardinals. Leave comments if you have comments. Click that little thumbs up guy. That helps me out a lot. And follow me on Twitter. And I'll see you next time on Birdseeds.